Hi, this is Michael Coleman from the SoundWorks Collection podcast, and in this episode, we're talking with the music team behind The Last of Us. We have composer David Fleming and Gustavo Santaolalla. Welcome you both.
Thanks, Michael.
Hello. Hey, Michael.
Gustavo, for you, this has probably just been the most amazing full circle moment, obviously, to now work on the shows, but going from something that was widely successful and loved, like the video game, and now having another opportunity to visit these characters and these cues and these moments and story points. So how would you describe that for yourself?
Well, I always felt when was the moment of the game, right? That I never felt that I was writing the music for a video game. I always felt that I was writing the music for a story, for a great story. It was always clear in my mind that doing it in the right way, right? This could be tapped into any medium. I like to say that you could do it as a puppet theater, and it will work too as an animation thing, because it's a great story. It's such a great story that you could have characters played slightly different, because obviously one thing is Joel, in the video game, and one thing is the Joel played by Pedro Pascal. They're slightly different, but the story and the characters, the deep character of the characters, is so powerful that transcends that, because it's a super well and great story. And it's great because, again, it's the infected zombie thing and stuff is really anecdotic. It's more about the human condition, and it has to do with all these contradictions that we have as human beings, and how can we act or react, and it's so it's great because you, as a spectator, as a gamer, you are part, or in a way, you are a accomplice in some of these things. When in the first game, it comes to the point that Joel realizes that to get this cure, they're going to have to kill Ellie, he goes into this thing and he kills, everybody, and then, this, you feel good that they didn't kill Ellie, But at the same time, these people were working to save humankind, there was the possibility of, and that was, cut it because of this guy, but you're happy that this happened. And then when they kill Joe, you feel bad, but at the same time, you have to think, what was happening to the other girl, that her father was killed, and it's all these moral dilemmas and all these contradictions. And then the genius of Neil that you end up, playing with Ellie's arch enemy, So, it's a very, very it's a great story, and it was a very difficult, not difficult, it was a big challenge to move it from one platform to another one. But I think, in a way too, that the fact that we kept the music and the themes and the aesthetic of that, it was a big help to make this happen, because I always knew that we could get new fans of the story or of the series, but the thing was to not lose the people that love the game, which actually have embraced the series.
David, I'd love for you to talk about, obviously you were involved with season 1. Did you have any relationship to the video game? Did you have any understand, like what was your Last of Us relationship coming into this project?
Not much relationship with the video game, but I did have a relationship with Gustavo's music, especially for other things that I've talked to him about. Motorcycle Diaries, especially, being one of my favorite scores, and I knew his music for Last of Us a little bit. I didn't sort of know the depth of the story, but I did. One of the key things for me was being an admirer of his music. Was to sort of approach my part of the score with real reverence to what his music was already doing, and I wanted to make sure what I did was a cousin of his. And of course, there's opportunities with the new medium to kind of expand and explore new things, but ultimately, I wanted to be part of what I think was the genius of Craig and Neil, which was coming to the source material with respect, and I think what you're describing of it's great that we're able to adapt video games. I think they've tried so many times, and I think a lot of past adaptations failed because maybe they didn't approach it with that same sort of reverence and respect. And so I think by doing that, obviously you keep your original fans, but I think also maybe the less obvious thing was we're more likely to get new fans if we use this thing that has already emotionally affected so many people. It seems kind of obvious in retrospect, but I think Last of Us was sort of one of the first properties to really try it in this way, and I hope it proves successful for other properties as well to do it in a similar way. But I also want to say that I think the thing that makes Last of Us particularly ripe for that type of adaptation, ripe for moving to a new medium, is how mature, and Gustavo already spoke about this a little bit, how mature the storytelling is, and that it's dealing with a lot of moral relativism, and I think the maturity of the approach to the story also is what Gustavo brought to the music of those games, and I think what we've tried to bring to the music of the show together, of how do we capture something that is not a genre horror thing, it even though it's terrifying at moments and that it really is a human story most of all.
But it's amazing. I mean, it's amazing what David have done, because I mean, once you have something that you're so connected, I mean, people with these themes and the aesthetics of the music and stuff, and we knew we needed, those other moments, of action and violence and stuff, and to do something that actually, will not conflict with the already what we have there, and make it just one thing, a coherent thing. I mean, it's a big challenge to make that happen, And I think, I mean, it's great, and actually, I can see more and more the way, I mean, we can collaborate, because actually, I don't know, but we if you know this, but we did a performance together.
I was so excited to be a part of this. Gustavo is obviously he's a consummate stage musician who tours a lot. I had, I played in bands when I was younger, but strangely, I had a little more experience, at least when it came to this show, because I did it last year with Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So it was he has all the experience in the world of playing on stage, and I just do this one concert once a year. But when we decided, hey, let's do this together and sort of do a medley of pieces, I think it got really fun for both of us, because we could play on each other's stuff. And at least speaking for me, it was especially once it gets to the theme at the very end, we played the medley together, and it ends with the Last of Us theme, and getting to kind of, really go to town on the electric guitar on that melody. You could just feel the whole audience get excited, and it's such an iconic theme. So
I love to see
so
David
much fun.
putting the guitar loud, and just,
it's funny because a lot of times in shows, I will not sit through the opening titles. Or, the streamers love to offer that option, skip the title.
Right.
I don't. I feel like it acclimates you and reminds you of the world that you're entering, and I think it's wonderful that we have that musical cue, because the storytelling, obviously, in that cue, to me, says a lot about the overall living, breathing organism of the show. ask you though, this season opens up with Jackson, Wyoming. I was waiting I was looking for you, Gustavo. Where's the shot of Gustavo on the street in his chair?
Well, but they put me somewhere else. You know.
I know. You play a very good house band. It's a very good. I was like, you got your own shot too. I was like, this is even better.
It's amazing.
But what I want to talk about is with this season, establishing tone is a different. Ellie, Joel are different people. It's a different storyline now, and we're on a different chapter of the evolution of The Last of Us. What to you was exciting, Gustavo, about getting into Jackson, getting into this next chapter?
Well, I mean, it's a particular cue also that is great. I mean, we will not talk before when we talk about cues, but this is an interesting one too, which is actually going when they get into Jackson. When I use this baritone banjo, that is something that Bella Fleck designed, I love the whole thing about the life there and Jackson and what's going on and there. It was I don't know. It was very different in general. The use of music too in this season in relationship to the first season. First of all, I particularly think the music was mixed louder than the first season, and which I think is a benefit. One of the things that I noticed that in the type of stuff that I do, with orchestral music, you can put it more further in the back and it works. This thing is so minimal sometimes. If you put it, if you don't put it, you lose the emotional impact that it has. Of course, I mean, Iñárritu, you have to tell Alejandro, it's too loud, the music, I remember when he went to Cannes and he blew the speakers in Cannes, doing the trial. So, but I think this year the music sounds great, and also they have let we use more pieces of music, more time without dialogue. Music plays a different role than in the first season. I'm very excited about the next season that we're going to be working with David.
I want to ask you about something that really spoke to me, which was around your instrumentation and how you present your music. There's a lot of space. There's a lot of, it can be verb, it can be sustains, it can be all sorts of different techniques. What can you guys both say? Maybe David, especially for a lot of your cues, there's a certain tone and there's a depth that you're exploring. Can you talk about how you incorporate space into your cues and your music?
Well, a lot of that is inspired by Gustavo's approach, to be honest. It's one of the things I think makes his music really special is that he embraces negative space and silence. And, of course, there are big action moments that I've done, like the Battle of Jackson is like more is more sometimes. But I would say more often than not on this show, the less is more approach is employed more than on other shows I've worked on, other films I've worked, and sometimes the creative process with Craig and Neil is more subtractive, and you start with a larger cue, and I think a lot informed by Gustavo's aesthetic in general is what is how can we strip this back to its rawest form, to its sort of simplest form? How can we communicate something that feels really real and honest? And it's not about overloading it with notes and overloading it. There's plenty of time for that. There are big moments, but Joel's death, for instance, was one part that we went back and forth a lot with. And it was just a process of carving it away, stripping it back. And I think, hopefully what I think is always the goal is to have the show give you the same feeling of when you're playing the game, of that you are the character, that you are experiencing what they're experiencing. And I think the key to that is it's not staying out of the way, because I think the music has a strong identity, what it really is saying what you need to say with as few voices as possible and as simply as possible. And I think, you know, that extends back to Gustavo's main title theme, is like those notes. Part of why it was so exciting for us to play live together is like these single notes can really, you know, they cut through.
Yeah, and we were talking yesterday too about the importance of melody. You know how melody is quite absent in general these days in film music in general, right? I mean, not saying that is right or wrong. I'm just saying that's a reality. But again, I still think that when it's, you know, rightly used in the right moment and stuff, it is so powerful, you know, a melody, you know, and it can be very simple, few notes, and but it does the job. I think that it's very, and I think your question was really cool. It's very difficult for David to create those spaces of silence or sort of silence, because sometimes, you know, there is that silence, it is covered by a reverb or by something, right? But when you're doing all this stuff that is so kinetic and there's so much, and so it's a tough challenge, you know, to create those spaces there, you know. I mean, it's easier when you're doing something more emotional and it's, you know, just a few notes. But with something that you need to keep a rhythm or something, you know, it's, but he does it. I mean, you know, it is, I mean, it keeps this, you feel it not foreign to the other stuff.
Gustavo, I'd love for you to just touch upon the blending of acoustic and more electric sounds. I've, especially when it comes to a cue like The Path, which was, you know, you collaborated with Tom Morello, you know, who definitely brings a signature sound to his music. But can you just talk about, specifically how you can still honor both instruments and what they bring, but how do they blend and how do they kind of help you tell your story?
Well, I think, I mean, it's from I don't know, it's pretty natural. I mean, for me, well, first of all, I come from rock and roll. I mean, that's, you know, so the acoustic and the electric, I mean, they're always been present, you know. And I mean, I love the use of the vibrato and in the guitar. And obviously Tom has some trademark sounds that I wanted to be projected in the piece that we did, you know. So it's, you know, the guitar, you know, play the melody in 3 different octaves, you know, and then the stuff that he does with the whammy stuff. I mean, all these things that are, you know, Morello, you know. And so basically what I did with that was sort of, you know, create this track that in a way served for his sound and himself to show, you know.
When I heard The Path, I was like, I know this cue. I know this music. It's great. I'm so happy that it's here because it is really so much of the DNA of what The Last of Us was when we were playing the game.
Correct. And it plays at the very end, you know, I mean, in the game and stuff, it's very important. And I mean, it was my selection in the sense, I mean, Craig wrote to me and said, I'm friends with Tom Morello. I mean, if you don't want to, he said, man, I mean, I'm a big fan of Rage Against the Machine, Audio Slave, everything. But he said, you know, if you do an iconic theme, but he didn't say what theme and stuff. And I immediately thought of The Path because it hasn't been used, you know, and I think it's a great theme. Actually, I think we should use it again in a different format, but it's a great melody too, you know. Once again, you know. And so it was for me, it was very easy that was the theme. And then we did the thing for the end, which is like 70 seconds or something like that. And they love it so much that they asked us to do like a longer version for the album that is coming out now, I think, any day, right?
The music is not, you can't separate the music from the scene. Like there's an intention there in terms of when you wrote it, of what scene it went with, and I think that's, to me, when I think of some of the cues, one of them for you, David, is like Revelations, a big scene. Ellie is, showing Dina her immunity. I just don't remember from the game if it was as emotional or as impactful of like, are they going to stay together? Are they going to separate? The trust, obviously of Dina pulling a gun on Ellie, just the whole tension of that scene. Can you talk about that cue? Revelations to me is a very powerful one.
Yeah, that was interesting for me because there is, as we sort of intimated, like a lot of my side of the score sort of leans towards tension and action, and that was like an emotional tension cue, because Ellie is revealing something about herself that has got so much darkness attached to it, and shame and fear. And even Dina sort of raises a gun. It's somewhere between an emotional cue and this could get ugly really fast. So again, sort of playing with the same instrumentation that we both draw upon, but it was interesting to sort of juxtapose those two types of tension, and obviously Ellie is putting a lot of trust in Dina at that moment, but it's like you really don't know which way it's going to go, and it's what I think one of their relationship is one of the things that translated best this season to the medium of the show, and I think you're just so invested at that point that you just it's for me watching it, even though I had a feeling of what was going to happen, I was really on the edge of my seat. So.
Also, I think with this show, obviously, I think what you alluded to, Gustavo, about perspectives. We're allowed as an audience to we don't take sides, but we have different perspectives of the story of Abby's journey, Joel's, of Ellie, Dina, everybody who's involved. What did you guys like about this in terms of, especially, I'm looking at like the New Year's Eve, obviously, of making choices and the consequences and the outcomes, especially with this last episode with 6. We're showing a totally different, just like we take the other perspective of Abby's story later. Yes. When you start to learn more about Abby, you're like, wait a second, I don't know how I feel now about Abby. But can you talk about perspectives and how musically you're either storytelling or not leading the audience to feel a certain way?
Well, the idea always is not to feel, although we are manipulating the audience in a way. I mean, every artist does that, right? But you don't want it like a good magician. You don't want it, right, to see it happen, right? But I think, we're very careful about that, to not turn something dramatic into something melodramatic. For me, the big point in the story is the moment, which is in episode 6 at the end, which is the moment that Ellie finally confronts, although she's been trying to confront him and say, no, you lie, I don't believe you. But that moment is crucial because he finally breaks down, and I think, Pedro also, that's talking about performances. It's amazing because he's like this, Clint Eastwood type of, a male, tough guy that always doesn't show anything, are you happy? Yeah. Are you sad? Yeah. It's always, but then he breaks down, and he really breaks down. I think that's a big difference with some of the other actors that are usually that thing, right? And that moment is a combination of two pieces, one that is done with this guitar that I used in the second game, that I replaced the 6-string Fender bass with these strings that are made only in Argentina. But it's the same thing that the 6-string bass, but in a classical guitar, right? So it's an octave lower, and I use quite a bit and for some of the themes, um, and I always relate it not because it belongs to a character in particular, but um, after the first game, I realized that there were two sounds, two things, sonic things that connected with two aspects of the game: the feminine side and the fragile side, and the masculine side and the muscular side, right? And the feminine side was the ronroco, and the masculine side was this six-string bass, or was this bass guitar, right? What I like, and a piece like All Gone is something that I related, because it's played with all different instruments, but it's something that I relate always with the feminine side and with Ellie and stuff. That's we listen, we hear that piece for the first time when Joel's daughter dies, right, in the story. So in that piece, at the moment that Ellie confronts Joel, and finally he breaks down and stuff, I like it because we hear a piece with the low string that actually is Joel and is the masculine thing, but it's in this moment that actually he breaks down, and that music now becomes very fragile. And then All Gone kicks in too. So it's a combination of these two things, and I think it works great, and I think that that's a very, very important part of the story. I mean, critical part of the story. So that's something that I really, really like.
That's fantastic, David. For you, when I listen to your cues, I mean, like you're saying, in context of a scene, and with the visuals, or visuals can be so overwhelming sometimes, but the emotion of music sometimes is even more effective, because it's what you don't know or where it's leading can be very I don't know. It can be so unsettling in some of the best ways. I want to ask you though, what's the instrumentation that you're pulling at? Because when I listen to your cues, I don't want to say it's a rattling, but there's an unsettlingness. What are the types of instrumentations that you are using to kind of really deliver some of these high tension moments that are both patient and also long moments?
That's funny. The rattling. Yes, there definitely is a rattling aesthetic. I've had this image in my head ever since we started this season, that because I do think we draw on similar textures, and a lot of that's informed by what Gustavo had already done. But I have this image of the character that Gustavo's score plays, his part of the score, and the character that my part of the score plays. It's like we've come to the same pawn shop in this apocalyptic wasteland, and the instruments are the same, but I think of his side of the score, it's like a guitar master, obviously, finding all these instruments, and there's an emotion to picking them up again, after maybe not having seen them for a while. And then I feel like my side of the score is almost from the perspective of an electronic musician going into the same pawn shop, maybe never having played a guitar before, and I'm going to make music with this now, so it's the approach is different, but the palette is very similar. I'm also using detuned cellos and bowed banjos.
There's the instrument, the big guy that one.
Yeah,
that's great.
There's a particularly crazy instrument that I used on this called a Yaibahar, which I brought on stage when we played together. It's my friend David built it based on something he had seen on the internet, and it's effectively two cello strings that are attached with long springs into frame drums. So it has its own spring reverb. It has its own acoustic spring reverb as it resonates into these drums. It's got the same sort of quality, and I think it's there are a lot of electronics in what I've done, but it's always approached from an acoustic point of view.
It's totally organic. I mean, you say an electronic musician, but you can't tell in a way. You know what I mean? You don't think, oh yeah, it's an electronic musician, and then there's no. It's
more It's more the approach of an electronic musician. Some of these action scenes that there is a looping nature, but I always want it to feel organic. And to be honest, most of the sound sources are organic, or they're paired with organics, so that it and that is specifically so that it never feels at odds with what Gustavo has done. That, you know, if there is a synthetic quality, I don't want you to feel it. I want you to feel that all of this is from a world that's kind of moved on, and that there is, it's a bit grittier, it's a bit grimier, it's a bit dirtier. It's not Hollywood, it's not shiny, and so much of that again is from the aesthetic of the story and Gustavo's music, and how do we embrace that? How do we make something that's punchy and impactful? And oftentimes it's the opposite of what you think. You know, you kind of, your brain is trained to think, you know, a punchy big sound is like tons of taiko drums and tons of big giant orchestra. But sometimes if you have one small drum that you've mic'd and you're just bold with it and you make it right up in front, it's as big as any of that stuff. So that's always the approach with this show.
It seems like you guys have a lot of fun. I mean, this seems like a show, even though the material can be sometimes hard and even repressive, there's a lot of joy in working on a show like this.
It's a gift, man. It's a gift that life gave me. The Last of Us is such a special project, you know what I mean? After everything I've done and that I do, because I continue to do the projects that I'm totally excited about, you know. I mean, they're great artistic projects. I did the Spanish version of Dracula last year, you know, and I'm doing now, you know, this movie about this particular moment in the life of Bruce Springsteen when he did Nebraska, you know. I'm doing, I mean, all these things. I have a small book publishing company. I'm releasing a perfume now, you know, that I've been working for a couple of years, and all these things. But after the Oscars and all that, to do something that has connected me with a totally new audience, people that didn't know anything about me, you know, they didn't know the movies, they didn't know the productions, my solo, bajo fondo, nothing. Lots of young kids, you know, that now listen to other stuff, other of my music, or that now play guitar because of The Last of Us, or play rock, or you know, it's incredible at this point, you know, with 2 granddaughters and, you know, a few years on my back and some, you know, personal stuff and things. I think it's an incredible gift. I feel it's very, very special.
I want to congratulate you both on such a phenomenal interpretation of something that was already perfect. Like you could not go wrong with this, but yet it became so much better and so much bolder and intense in so many great ways. So yeah, I just want to congratulate you both on Last of Us. I can't, like, how many seasons can we do? That's the question.
Well, it doesn't depend on it's not on us, really.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gustavo, David. Really appreciate your time. And obviously, the Last of Us soundtrack is now online. You can catch it. You can buy it. You can relive these music cues, which I've just continued to fall in love with. So yeah, it's a great treat to have this music released into the world. So thank you both.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, David.
Many thanks to our guests today, and if you'd like to listen to more conversations from the SoundWorks Collection, please subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on all major podcasting platforms, including the video version on YouTube. You can also find exclusive daily video clips on our Instagram and TikTok pages, and connect with other creatives around the world through our email industry mailing list at soundworkscollection.com. If you have a story or project that you want to propose for the show, please send us an email at info@soundworkscollection.com. And thanks again for listening.